Okay, so a couple of students complained the other day saying that the old video that I had for object pronoun placement was a little blurry. So I checked it out and it actually was a little bit blurry. So I'm going to redo it here. Hopefully it won't be blurry and you guys will be able to read what's on the board. Okay, what I'm talking about today here are the placement where you actually put object pronouns in a sentence in Spanish. Now, this will work for direct object pronouns. It'll work for indirect object pronouns, and it'll also work for reflexive pronouns. So if you're doing reflexive verbs, these same rules still apply. Okay, first rule of where you would put an object pronoun or a reflexive pronoun in a sentence is before the conjugated verb. Almost every single sentence is going to have a conjugated verb. You put it up in front. Now that's opposite from how we do it in English. In English I would say something like, I eat bananas, okay? I eat them. The them comes after the verb. In Spanish, it comes up in front, okay? It's just 180 degrees from how we do it in English. Okay, the next two are very similar. They're both tacked onto something. In the second case here, rule number 2, you tack it onto an infinitive. And please remember, an infinitive is any form of the verb that is unconjugated. It always ends in the letter R. It could be AR, ER, or IR, but it always ends in R. Similar to that, rule number 3, a present participle, you tack it onto the end. Present participles, that's like the ing form of a verb. Running, jumping, falling, something like that. In Spanish, your present participles always end in the letters N-D-O. Okay, it could be ando or yendo. And I'm going to give you guys examples on all these here too, so if you're not following along here, don't freak out. The last two are tacked onto an affirmative command or before a negative command. And I know you're thinking, what the heck is an affirmative command? An affirmative command is when you're telling somebody, do something, okay? Eat it. That would be an affirmative command. A negative command would be, don't eat it. Okay, the negative command has the word don't up in front of it. Okay, let's come up with some examples for all of these. Now, first one thing, we're going to be using the verb comer, and we're all going to be talking about enchiladas. Okay, we're going to be talking about that, all right, in every single one of these sentences. So hopefully it'll be easier to follow along. The first rule, if I, before a conjugated verb, okay? So if I wanted to say, I eat them, I eat them, I eat the enchiladas. Remember, my direct object pronoun for enchiladas is going to be las. So I'm going to be using las in every single sentence. In this case, I would say, I eat them, yo como, okay? Como is a conjugated verb. It doesn't end in the letter R. It does not end in ando or yendo, so it's not a present participle. It's not a command. I'm not saying eat them. It's just a simple statement of fact. I eat them. In this case, I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to use red. The direct object pronoun las is going to go right there in the middle. Yo las como. And the yo is even optional. I could just say las como. Easy. Okay? That's the first rule, and that's super, super common. You'll see why it's so common here in a second. Okay? Rule number 2 said, tack to an infinitive. Okay? In this sense, once again, we're going to be using comer. All right? But when you have an infinitive in the verb, you almost always also have a conjugated verb in your sentence. So if I wanted to say, I am going to eat them, I am going to eat the enchiladas, okay? Las is still my direct object pronoun, but because I have an infinitive here, I can literally tack the word las right onto the end of that infinitive, okay? Voy a comerlas. And that's very close to how we do it in English. Well, it's exactly the same as how we do it in English. Well, except in English we don't actually tack it on to the end of the word. Okay, but now, wait, there's more. Because we have two verbs in this sentence, we have an infinitive, we also have a conjugated verb right here. I could also take that las for enchiladas, I could put it up here. Las voy a comer. The only thing you can't do is use it in both spots. Okay, you can't do that. Pick one or the other. All right? If you tack it onto the end, that's more the way it is, how it sounds in English. Okay? And so there's an advantage to doing that. There's also an advantage to just putting it up in front. because that way you don't even have to remember rule number 2, tacking it onto the end of the infinitive. You can just put it up in front of the conjugated verb. And like I said, almost every sentence where there's an infinitive, there's also going to be a conjugated verb. So you can just kind of forget rule number 2 and just apply rule number 1. Okay, next one. Rule number 3, I am eating. This is where you tack it on to the end of a present participle. Comiendo. Estoy comiendo means I am eating. Okay? This is part of what we call the present progressive tense. Rule number 3 says you can tack this object pronoun directly onto the end of that present participle. So that would be like putting it right here. Estoy comiéndolas. There's a catch though. If you decide to tack it onto the end there, you must put an accent on the vowel that comes right before the end in NDO, what do we call that? The suffix, comiendo, okay? You have to put an accent mark there, okay? If you decide to do it this way, it works out great because it's very much like English. It's probably what you're used to. I am eating them, okay? The bummer is you have to use an accent mark, okay? And if you have an accent phobia, that might cause you some problems. However, one more thing. See this? Again, in almost every sentence where you have a present participle, you're also going to have a conjugated verb. So, rule number 1 still applies. I could take the las and put it up there. Either one is great. Okay? Either one is totally correct. And no one is, more popular than the others. And no one's going to tease you. No one's going to go, oh, don't hang out with that guy. He puts his direct object pronouns in front of his conjugated verbs instead of tacking them onto the end of the present participle. Nobody cares, okay? They're both the same. All right. That takes us to the last 2 rules, okay? Attached to an affirmative command. I'm going to use the to command, all right? Come, eat, all right? If I wanted to say eat them, eat the enchiladas, I still have my direct object pronoun as las. I tack it right onto the end. Comelas. Oh, got to put an accent mark. Whenever your command form is 2 syllables or more, you have to put an accent on there to maintain the original stress of the command. So comelas would be eat them. Okay? Easy enough. And that's the only way you can do this. If it's an affirmative command, if you're ever saying, hey, do this, whatever it is, eat them, help me, something like that, you have to tack it on to the end. That's the only option. And our final rule, woohoo, before a negative command. Once again, I'm going to use the to command. The negative to command is no comas, don't eat, okay? Direct object pronoun is still las, and because of rule number 5, says before a negative command, we have to put the las up there. No las comas. Okay? Excuse me. Those are the 5 rules of object or reflexive pronoun placement. That's it. Thank you. You can shut it off now.